Yo, what up, everybody? It's Verbal D. Let's just jump into it. My afterthoughts of Genesis chapter 15. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. So God's telling Abram, don't be afraid. He will protect him and he will be his great reward. He is Abram's treasure, right? The most highly sought after thing in the world. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. So Abram's saying, yeah, that's great and all that. Yeah, I appreciate that, but I don't have anybody to take over after me, right? And God has already told him. This is why humans are very stubborn. He has so much faith in God, but yet he's still questioning God's timing, God's blessing. God clearly has said over and over, I will make you the father of many nations. Your nations will be as numerous as the sand, right? So he's asking God, so what am I going to get a child? Somebody else in my house already had a child, Is that the person that's supposed to take up after me? Right? And verse 4, And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. So God's saying, no, that's not the child that I'm going to make your heir, somebody else's child. It has to come from you, your bloodline, right? From your own bowels. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. Again, God's reminding him, I'm going to make your generations not even countable. You can't even fathom how many people I'm going to pull out from your generational bloodline, right? So God is using all these different metaphors, from the dust to the sand to the stars. Verse 6, And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And that's nice, he believed in him, but God always has to remind us, because God doesn't lie and he keeps his promises. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. Another reminder, right? And he said, Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? So what signs will I have, and when will I know that I will have this land? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years old. Heifer is like old school version of heifer. Heifer being like a young calf, a baby cow, right? And a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took unto him all these, and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against another. But the birds divided he not. So he's setting these carcasses across from one another, right? And when the fowls, the turtle dove and the young pigeon, came down upon the carcasses, Abram drove them away, right? And this seems like some type of like ritual, right? And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram. And lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. So this is God talking to Abram while he's in this deep sleep, right? And God made light and darkness so he can control both for his own purposes. And he's basically letting Abram know, I will make your nation very great, but your seed will be a stranger in a land that is not theirs. So God will give Abram an inheritance of land, without a doubt. But God knows of what's to come, and the trials and the tribulations, and giving us examples to live by and stories that we can look back on. And he says that these people who own this land will afflict Abram's nation for 400 years. And God continues in verse 14, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. So God saying, I will still judge how they treat you, you being a stranger in a foreign land, right? And afterwards shall they come out with great substance. Now, when he says they, he's talking about Abraham's people. He's not talking about the people who own the land, who he will judge, right? So this is also part of God's promise. He says, make your nation very great, as numerous as the stars, the dust, the sand, but your seed will be a stranger in a foreign land, and these people who are the owners of the land, who reside there, how they treat you, I will judge them, And then once these 400 years are over of oppression and all this trials and tribulations, he says they will come out with great substance. And he's referring to Abraham's seed. He's continually going to bless Abraham's seed, right? It's an everlasting covenant. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, talking to Abraham. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. So God's promising Abraham longevity. But in the fourth generation they shall come hither again. So the fourth generation of Abraham's seed, I believe. For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. So the land that they will be residing in is the land of the Amorites, right? And iniquity means like their sinfulness, right? And it came to pass that God will be judging the Amorites because they're wicked, and they will be oppressing Abraham's people while they're there for 400 years. And then they will come back even after Abraham's seed leaves, and they come out with great substance. Right? Verse 17, and it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. This is still part of that ritual that was going on earlier. In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying unto thy seed, have I given this land from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. The Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites. So, after this ritual, that is when, in the same day, God made that covenant, giving all these lands filled with all these different nations already there, right? All these different groups that we have just named, and these are the people that God will judge who try to mess with God's people. And God's people are Abraham's many numerous family members and friends and everybody that's in his nation, right? That God will bless. So I hope you guys enjoyed this My Afterthoughts pretty quickly. I'll see you guys in chapter 16. We're making progress. God bless.